This is meant to be provocative. I plan to expose a deep festering wound in society, and I need to rip off the band-aids that we've placed to hide it in plain sight. It may hurt or offend. However, I hope you can see there is a greater purpose, one that is born of concern and care for all of us, and more importantly, our children. Cognitive dissonance. It is the deep discomfort you feel when your actions are in conflict with your beliefs, values, and instincts. Specifically, in this case, parental instincts. Prime example of this was the moment you handed your child their first cell phone. The tingling in the back of your neck, that voice begging you to stop, and the subsequent stories you told yourself to hush them. She will be ostracized at school if I don't. I need to be able to get hold of him at any time. I have brought my child up well enough to know wrong from right. They need to keep up with the digital world. They're going to access this stuff anyway. Might as well be controlled by me. And the most naive of all, I trust my child. These are natural human reactions to the cognitive dissonance. Your mind creates the false logic needed to validate your actions and restore your moral self-worth. Only this time, it is not about you. It is about the well-being of the most precious thing in your life, your child. I have the simultaneous privilege of working at the forefront of such technology and being dad to 2 young boys, aged 12 and 7 years old. Knowing what I know, my children will not have phones until they are at least 16. No matter how difficult society tries to make that choice for me or them. Once you understand the system, the choice is not even a choice at all. I am not alone either. Tristan Harris, in The Social Dilemma, made the treacherous observation that none of the tech giant CEOs allow their own children on such platforms. Such irony is almost poetic. The platforms that have made them millions through the capture of others' children. And yet, in order to make this choice, you don't have to be in the tech industry or understand it to any real depth. The justification is ubiquitous and self-evident. All you have to do is look up from your phone for an undistracted 5 minutes and contemplate the points I'm about to make. Privacy is not protection. When there's a staged fight in the store, nobody's looking at the cash register. Our focus on privacy has been so intense that we forget that privacy does not equal protection at all. It would take a novice hacker nothing more than a sip of Red Bull and a few minutes to triangulate your child without either their name or number. All they would need are the last 3 selfies she had posted on any platform and perhaps 1 like or share from a friend. Much like with drug dealers, it would probably be easier for them to not know their victim. Our governments have fallen hook, line and sinker for this fallacy, and through GDPR and our own PAPIA, they are active participants in the wrong fight. To highlight this point, none of these policies were broken in the tragic events outlined in the My Only Story podcast. The information and access used by the perpetrators were always volunteered by their victims. Big tech aren't evil. They are just businesses. The complex balance of shareholder value and social responsibility has always been tipped on the wrong side, this century and the 3 preceding. To that effect, big tech is as culpable in failing to protect our children as the tobacco companies are in the matter of smokers' health. Over time, the extent of their accountability would be practically limited to a warning on the packaging. The real evil is actually much simpler, even if inconvenient to admit. It is our choices. To quote a Netflix executive, our biggest competition isn't Prime Video, it's sleep. Taking accountability for maintaining a healthy balance cannot be abdicated. Anti-social media. To use Sir Ken Robertson's words, there's nothing social about social media. The name is as paradoxical as safe explosives. We all know this. It is our job to ardently protect our children's social development, let alone allow it to be hijacked by technological impersonators. Consider a no-phone party for teenagers. Wouldn't that be something? And the lack thereof cannot be offloaded at the feet of any Zuckerberg. It is ours to carry. We must understand the very nature of psychological addiction. The first aspect of this is denial. To prove this, I ask you to estimate, without checking, the hours per day you have spent on your phone this last week. Now, look it up on your phone. I've done this experiment many times, and most people will find that their estimate is at least 30 to 50% below the actual. Now add the vulnerability of a child to the spectrum of denial and realize how out of control they are when managing their own phone time. You are literally providing unfettered access to the liquor cabinet and expecting them to drink responsibly. Actually, that analogy is wrong. The smartphone created the ability to carry this addiction wherever we go, so it's more like a bottomless hip flask than a physically constrained cabinet at home. Take your child's phone away unannounced and see whether their irritable response even resembles that of a child anymore. You will not experience the familiar tantrums, nor will it dissipate by banishment to their rooms. It will resemble addiction, because that is exactly what it is. The open internet is itself the problem. Social media is only a subset. In our rush to emulate the developed world, we have not paused to consider the irregularity in their logic. In Canada, for example, access to the internet is considered the right of every citizen, but there are few restrictions to, and even less enforcement of, what happens on it. There are many reasons for this, and chief among them is that most of the damage that has occurred and will occur shows itself only in the long term. This is the nature of psychological trauma. It often lies dormant and obscured for decades only to present itself in subtle cues, until one day it explodes. Consider the #MeToo movement. I, for one, was shocked on how pervasive it was and how many had been affected. People close to us, by people close to us. And yet, how most of us barely reflected on the cues that were ever present and that we chose, yes chose, to ignore. This is the same. Humor me this one example to demonstrate a not so subtle point. There will be nothing humorous by the end of it. Take out your phone and type in the word porn into your Google browser. Now click on the image search to see what unfettered access to the open internet can look like to your child. I am not conservative when it comes to porn by any stretch, nor have I forgotten my pubescent boarding school boy days of seeking it out, sometimes over food and water. What concerns me is that the nature of the pictures has changed. In my day, I had occasional access to static nude pictures mostly, and some pictures of active sex. Generally, what most adults today would consider normal. About 30% of the porn pictures today border on rape. The women are clearly not enjoying the act, and often seem forced and helpless. This is not unexplainable. The universal access to online platforms means there is a constant dilution of impact. Teenagers need more and more extreme stimuli to get off, and the only way to keep them interested is by pushing the forbidden apple further and further away. So far, it is positioned somewhere between incest and rape. Stepsister is one of the most searched categories of Pornhub, which itself is in the top 10 most viewed websites of all time across the globe. OnlyFans, a social media platform where teenage girls are able to sell videos of themselves online, recently tried to prevent its use for pornographic content. It rescinded the restrictions within a week of implementation because the fan base disagreed. In a country where gender-based violence is already at excruciating levels, what will our boys grow up to model? Access. We need to understand who is getting access when you hand your child a phone. Is it your child, or is it every big tech company and social media platform and other platforms in general that are getting access to your child? In a digital world where clicks are currency and addiction is the wallet, what chance does your child have to exercise his or her own agency? Picture an open playground with no fencing or wall around, no supervisors and no parents, no access controls, with random adults distributing suspicious candy at will, and all you get to be is a distant voice in the background competing for your child's attention. That is what their phone is. Period. So, what is the solution? Simply, we need to ban smartphones from children until the age of 16. Access to the internet must be controlled, focused, and physically constrained. It will require communities to lead, and each of us to show leadership and responsibility to the community. Contravention must be as socially unacceptable as perpetually drunk children and their parents who don't care. Only collective and deliberate implementation will work. Trust me, the children will survive the ban. In fact, they will be more likely to survive as a result. I am not utopic in thinking they will never use or be used by a smartphone. Just that by the time that they would have had many years of hearing your voice loudest. Years where you didn't compete with 3 to 4 hours a day of targeted noise. You would then have had the opportunity to instill the moral compass needed to navigate the open internet with some chance of reaching land. Our institutions will only follow. Currently, even the best schools only go as far as to ban smartphones in their classrooms, not children who have phones. In fact, most children treat their school parking lots like a designated office smoking area, desperate to light up their phones. We, as parents, must lead. Society and governments will follow. Any inconvenience in doing so is trivial in the light of who we are saving. Our children. Ajit Gopalakrishnan is the head of Odin Education, a division of GenderMark Automation. His work experience spans several industries and functions, such as education, engineering, marketing, factory and project management. Ajit holds a degree in engineering from the University of Cape Town and a master's degree from Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology.